Okay, hello everyone. Back with, I guess, news part two to do with some job upgrades as well as some banners. So let's get the banner stuff right out of the way. And starting with banners, really not too terribly much special. I think most of what you're about to see is pretty much expected, at least from our side, but maybe I'm not covering these enough, so let's give a little bit more attention. First off, a paid reroll banner with 10 URs on it and 2 rerolls. Maybe good if you're trying to look for a certain high cost character. There is some high cost stuff on this, no collaboration characters, but that's to be expected. As for other things of note, does look like Zoma, that's right, I read the comment, Zoma will be getting a 9-step, and thankfully it does have some free ones on the way up, so that's pretty nice for people who are trying to get them. Maybe you'll end up getting lucky. It'll of course have its paid banners, and both the vision card as well as just Zoma himself will have paid step-ups as to be expected, and each of them will have a gold banner. Really, I mean, it's the same type of banners we've seen on JP a lot. Plenty of opportunities if you're a Dragon Quest fan to spend more money than you should. Alright, now let's get into the major talking point today, which is job improvements. And yes, I am on the right page. So we have 4 more jobs getting improved. Now, first one is Warrior slash Lord. People will know this job as Lord or Mont Leonis's job, not Amazing Mont. No, it's not Amazing Mont, is it? It's just it's regular Mont. And okay, well, we'll just get right into it. So take a look here. So Beast Killing Blade, or I think it's Beast Breaker or something like that on global, maybe, if I read that right. Damage to target medium will now have just a powerful beast killer on it. This would be probably more impactful if we had more beasts in arena or whatnot, but improvement is improvement. As for Killer Blade will see after increasing on defense penetration rate and human killer. Basically, it deals large damage, but after increasing own defense penetration rate and human killer. So Killer Blade does get a little bit better at killing. Good to know. Next step, Jammer Edge. Damage to target will go up to medium and healing power down for 3 turns. This is after an ability activation cancellation. This ability wasn't too crazy to me, but just a little bit more powerful now, so good for it. Throwing stone throw will still stay very small damage, but will decrease defense penetration rate for 3 turns. So stone throw actually becomes kind of interesting because so many units with defense penetration now that I hope this is like minus 50% defense penetration or something like that on the attacking unit, just because boy would that be kind of neat to have just checks against this like overabundance of everybody has a barrier and everybody has this protection and that protection, and everyone can get through 90% of defenses now, and it's just like, no, let's remove some of that, I guess. Next up, his buff ability, Discipline, will be getting single target resistance. Before it increased his own attack, but now it's also giving him single target resistance. First aid will now recover a percentage of his HP. It's still listed as small, so don't think that there's going to be anything too crazy here. Sorry, I need to scroll a little bit looking at my notes. And last but not least, First Prince Leonis, which is a actual ability of his, AP increase at the start of battle. Honestly, pretty nice little job increase. Nothing that really stands out to me without actual numbers, but I think there's enough here to maybe, I mean, Mont still is a technically pretty good limited cost character, and if we ever get a really strong Earth character, I mean, he'll find use again, and these buffs are kind of nice. Next up, Green Mage, and if you don't know who's a Green Mage, that's a good one. But no, Zoma will have the Green Mage from Dragon Quest, but I think more importantly, Shell will be getting these kind of buffs. So first off, starting off with weak magic-dependent damage within range and all attribute resistance down for 3 turns. Now, nothing is getting changed on the all attribute resistance down for 3 turns, but damage that it will deal is now going from small to large. So it's good. Green Mages have felt pretty just non-existent for the longest time. Them being able to deal damage will be pretty relevant for people trying to clear Selection Quest in the Ice element, because that's the one I'm mainly thinking about Shell here. Of course, there are other ones too. But I really, really like them just being able to, kind of be damage class as well, because there just isn't enough for them to do. But, speaking of which, Barfira, or the other types, the other attributes, will get a casting speed increase. Not too much else to say, just going to essentially get a casting increase that could make it more relevant. We'll see. Next up, Dispel. Now this one is interesting because it's going from a range of 3 to a range of 6, which is doubling the range on this thing is a big deal. And since so many units kind of have Dispel abilities on limit bursts or on abilities sometimes, it's nice to see, well, not that many, but it is still becoming more common. I think that this is a very good thing to happen and could find relevance potentially in the future, even whether it's on a current Green Mage or a future Green Mage. Next up, buff for other attributes as well. Increased fire, for instance, the one for fire increases fire resistance for all allies within 3 turns. It just seems to be getting a increase on the amount, which makes sense. There's a lot of resistance penetration now for elements and damage type, so this is just going to increase it, make it a little more even. Next up, what the heck is this spell called? D-Protect and D-Shell are our next two. Big thing to note here, the shape of the AoE will be changed to a rhombus. That wasn't very good. Rhombus, there we go, gotta get that R's in there. Range of 1 is being changed, so now it's going to be greatly reduce the defense of targets within range for 2 to 3 turns, and same for D-Shell. So it looks like the amount of value that it will be getting off of this is big, but I want to see the numbers to see how relevant it is against other characters that can kind of do the same thing. And last but not least, Vitalize and Savior's Protection, or Divine Protection, I think is kind of on JP. Seems to just increase the target's agility for the speed one and increase weakness resistance and magic attack resistance for Divine Protection. Now, honestly, I'd say that I'd be more excited about Green Mage, except the utility of them potentially being able to use their weakness spell to actually be relevant damage dealers could be interesting, and I'd really like to see what Shell can do after the updates, especially in Selection Quest. But just removing that for a second, so much of the utility depends on numbers, and that's what I want to see here. I mean, Dispel is a clearly nice improvement because it can just be activated from such a long distance now, but I really need to see more about Green Mage before I get too excited about it. That being said, on Zoma, we'll see. Next up is Samurai, and the classic Samurai example I think of are O, Laswell, of course there are others, but moving on. So let's look at, Kongu is our first one. AP consumption is being reduced from 36 to 28. That's probably fair. Most units nowadays have a lot of AP reduction, similar in use. Next up, looks like this will be becoming a 3-turn after increasing slashing attack resistance penetration. And this was the one that also had killers on it and dealt large damage before. So this is good to just get be a little bit more relevant on damage, since Samurai is kind of a damage class. Next up, Hazy Moon, I want to say, or Oborozuki, which is range. We'll be getting a little bit of an increase. Height, increase of 1. And next up, significantly decreasing healing power on this thing. That's... I like the range increase. I don't care so much about the healing decrease, because it feels like healers will just be good or not in certain situations. But who knows, PvE content, I could see some places. Next up is Gale or Hayate, which now just increases own CT. It was after moving to target square. So now just getting a little bit of a CT boost, maybe it can get a turn faster and start dealing some damage to those units. Hein will restore own AP when the enemy is incapacitated, which, okay, if you're killing an enemy and getting some AP back, I can always sign up for that. Next up, Meditation will be getting a increase in bravery for allies within range centered around self, so maybe some better bravery farming for the future? Who knows? Next up, what the heck is the next one? Vortex Render. Okay. This, I do believe, is Rob's ability, because I don't remember this being on... Oh no, yeah, this is Rob, and I skipped one. Illusion. So the height range is increased by 1, adds 3-turn self AoE resistance. Next one is Vortex Render, which is Rob's EX ability, which now gains a single extra use, removes guts before damage, and increases crit chance. I don't know, there might be something interesting there. The evasion rate boost is kind of nice, just because you're able to more accurately make sure that it gets on opponents or on your allies, even if there's like a little bit of height difference. That's kind of nice and a little bit more relevant. And also some range attack resistance is never bad, so I'll take it, kind of thing. As for Rob really isn't that relevant at all, but removing Guts effect definitely puts him more in line with a lot of more current units. So Samurai, kind of interesting. There's some good buffs here, and I think some that might be relevant on units that are still relevant. Still use Laswell for PvE content, and I've sometimes used him for PvP content, although I think he does fall behind just how good Ice Ranged is. But I'm pretty happy with Samurai's upgrades. And last night, we did another video, but no, the last job is Rune Knight. And Rune Knight, of course, the one I always think of as an example, is Howlet. So this is interesting. First of all, it's getting a name change. What a buff. From, for instance, Firaga Sword to Firaga Saber now. Magic base damage with the killer. And now, evasion / critical evasion greatly reduced before attack if the target is the opposing element. So for instance, if this is the Fire Sword and you're attacking a ice-based unit, that unit will lose a lot of evasion and critical evasion before the attack is dealt. So for Howlet, for example, if he was attacking Ketone, he could remove a lot of her evasion. I'm curious about exact numerical values here, but that's a pretty good buff against opposing elements, because usually you're trying to fight opposing or the weaker element in arena and whatnot, and this is just more certainty against evasion units. Cool. Next up, Hazard Slash will be getting a number of uses up, will also consume own HP after damage is done. Let me just double check my notes here, because that translation's weird. Gains 1 use removes shell, and the HP cost is lowered. Yeah, that was a little bit of a weird, funky translation that I had to do again. But yeah, shell is being removed. That's very good for someone who's dealing damage. Extra number of uses, always good. And the amount of HP that's being consumed, that's a big boost for Outlet. So, for example, or any character, as their attack power is pretty high, and you're just paying a lesser cost now. So great. All right. Next up is Soaring Blade, which enhances Flying Killer. Drain Evoke is next, which gets a slash resistance penetration buff that lasts 3 turns instead of 1, which is a really big boost. Drain Evoke is one of my favorite attacks because it just gives you a little bit of HP, deals some damage, and it gives you a magic power boost, gets you ready. But if you're also getting a slash attack resistance penetration for 3 turns, that's just really big for consistently dealing damage and really nice for Rune. Next up, for Halloween Raryu, we are getting a exclusive buff for him, which is his job level 25 ability will gain Protect and Regen for 3 turns. So for Halloween people, super happy for you guys. And our last one is Howlet's EX job, which inflicted magic-based damage twice in a row. So it was the chaining ability, I do believe. Was a medium, now going up to large damage, and to the target increasing his own mental penetration rate and slashing attack power for 3 turns. And looks like it's going from a no, that's the damage. There's the, just the new part is the actual slashing attack power going up. So overall, Rune Knight feels pretty strong just from looking at these buffs. Rune Knight feels like it will be able to consistently deal more damage without threatening its own HP quite so much. Not to say that there isn't like effective ways of just killing these units, because their damage dealers are much stronger now than they were in the past on Howlet out, for example, but I kind of like it. A lot of things I like about Rune Knight feel just stronger now. So, to sum up, I think that... Oh yeah, and of course, Howlet, Shell, Titus, and Moraga will be getting their Character Quest 2 upon the update tomorrow, which is going to also be interesting to see how that affects their power level. But Rune Knight feels like it will be very strong. Samurai feels like it'll be good. I'm more interested in Rune Knight than Samurai, because sometimes Samurai just has range issues more than anything. It feels like Green Mage. I'm very curious about how this goes for Shell, for example, and potentially for our new character. More on that later. And as for Mont, he's a low-cost unit and good for low-cost events, so I'm not going to knock on him too hard, or really at all. It's just kind of a nice little boost for him. So yeah, those are the job upgrades. They will be live tomorrow. And if there's anything like super noteworthy about the numerical values that are added to the game, then I will make a following video talking about them once I have seen them. But for now, those are the details. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. See you next time.